Hello, John. How are you doing?
Mark, I'm doing okay.
You look great. You look great. And so again, the fans are going to get to see your performance in Ripple Effect at 1 o'clock Pacific time. You're just astonishing. You're wonderful in it, and we love having you as part of it. You do a great job with the
I,
character,
I
and
saw I saw a little bit of it, and
yeah.
my beard looks much better now, I think.
Well, we're planning, more of that character and showing how he actually raises his grandson to become a leader. And
Uh,
so it's an amazing and varied character. And the fun part is in Ripple Effect, in that 2 hour episode, that character is played by a baby, and then a young man in his 20s, and then by you. And so we get to
uh,
chart that arc of that character, and then see the effect he has raising his grandson, which is quite amazing. And of course his son is the black sheep of the family, Frank, who will also get
right,
to
yeah.
moving
What
forward.
what are all these pictures behind you, Mark? They're
Oh,
fabulous.
well, there's a portrait I drew of Harlan Ellison with his signature, and a letter from Gene Roddenberry and George Clayton Johnson, who was the great writer of Star Trek and Twilight Zone and Logan's Run.
Uh,
And the girl with the bobbed haircut is Anita Luce, who wrote Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And then on the other
wow.
side is Patty Chayefsky and an astronaut that I
You have
met.
a picture of Patty Chayefsky?
Yeah, he
Oh
was
man.
amazing. He was one of the great writers, of course. And then Ed Kemmer and Frank Frank Thomas, who played Tom Corbett and Buzz Corey on Space Cadet and Space Patrol, respectively in the
Wow,
50s.
yeah.
So and then of course the spacesuit. There's this one of the spacesuits I own,
Oh, I love it.
and that's a real one. My mom bought me that when I was 12. So
Wow.
it's very very fun. So
It was
so
from the Cape.
yeah, that's actually it was a Navy high altitude suit, and it was used in
Wow.
Twilight Zone. There was an episode of Twilight Zone called The Parallel, one of the hour-long episodes, and that was used in that. And then I wear it in Space Command, so I have my cameo in that
Oh, I
spacesuit
love
on Mars. Yeah, it's great. So I just want to talk a bit about how wonderful you are, essentially, and the fans are on as well, and they can ask questions via Adam, our moderator. And so essentially, we first met, I think, on Deep Space Nine when I came up with Far Beyond the Stars, and you, of course, are great in that episode. You're great in everything. I mean, I've never, I mean, you're just an amazing actor. And
No, but as I've said many times to you, Far Beyond the Stars should be the basis for an entire series. He
yes,
could write the Bible to that in no time.
yes,
You know?
yes. Well, we're creating a number of series moving forward. I'm creating 6 shows under the heading the Showrunners Network with a number of people like Rockne O'Bannon and Mark
Oh,
Fergus, who are big showrunners, and so that's definitely something we can look at. It's definitely something I'm playing with. So that might be a possibility in the future moving forward. I'd love to do it, and it would
it
be great
doesn't have
fun.
to be. It doesn't have to be Star Trek. I mean, it
Oh,
doesn't have to. It's the idea that
yes,
is the wondrous thing about it.
yes,
It
yes.
allows it allows you to go anywhere and start in time and space.
Yes, it's true. And also, Ray Bradbury was one of my mentors for many years, and that generation of science fiction writers, Arthur C. Clarke, Heinlein, Asimov, Ray Bradbury, were working hand in glove with the scientists who were part of the Apollo program and so forth to basically bring that to the public as something that we would want to do to go to the moon. It doesn't make sense if you just look at it cold-bloodedly, but then they made it something that was wonderful, a wonderful dream to accomplish, and they did. And so that
Mark,
was, yeah,
do you know a writer named William Tenn? He was in
yes,
the
of
30s.
course, yeah,
Philip Class, or
the
I think
class, yeah, you bet,
that's
yes.
his actual name. Did you know him? Did you ever meet him?
I met him, but I didn't know him well because he was sort of like the East Coast contingent, and I was here in the West Coast. So I met sort of the Theodore Sturgeon and Harlan and those
Right.
kind of guys who were the West Coast guys. And because I grew up with Star Trek and Outer Limits and Twilight Zone, I started noticing that the books I was reading were written by the same writers who were writing those shows. And so when I was a teenager, I started going to the conventions and meeting. I mean, that's why I love science fiction conventions, because you can meet the actors, you can meet the writers. It's just such a wonderful community. And you and I initially met, I think, at some of those conventions, or at least deep into the friendship. And so that it's just terrific. So now let me ask you part of your process, because I love the way you work. And when you did the monologue that we'll see in Ripple Effect, you're so believable as that guy. There's no moment that rings false.
I'm
And
old. I'm old, Mark.
yes,
It was about an old guy, and I'm an old guy.
yes, 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 exactly. Well, it's funny. I'll introduce you to Elaine. She's over here. Elaine writes and directs and produces with me, and so she and I both wrote that scene for you. And here's Elaine. She's the wife.
Hi. Hello.
Yay! We we
Hi.
just we just celebrated our 43rd anniversary a few days ago on the 25th, and
Oh,
uh,
congratulations. That's
so
fantastic.
but yeah, and so basically
Where did you guys meet?
we met when I was in college at UCLA, and it was lovely.
Wow.
Side,
Yes, we just
Was
had
Hal,
yeah,
was
just
Hal,
had our
Ack,
43rd anniversary.
our
Yes, that's
43rd
right.
anniversary.
Yeah.
was Hal Ackerman there when you were there?
Yes, and again, I didn't know him well, but I did know, him in passing. It was but the great thing about UCLA at that period was at one point I took a lot of film courses. I was an art major, and at one point one of our teachers in one of our film classes said I had a lecture prepared, but I'm not going to give it today because we've got a guest, and it was John Huston. And in he came.
Oh,
And
Houston, it was, eh?
yes, yes. Now, also, Adam, our moderator, as you have questions for John, please feel free to jump in because Martok is one of the great Star Trek characters, and and you've also played Vulcans and other races on Voyager and Enterprise and so forth. So,
You can. I once heard. I think it was an actor who said it. I once heard that there are, after 50 years in the business, there are maybe a handful of projects that you can call, your own. That you can call. These were moments. These were the projects that actually worked. After doing thousands, there's a handful, and I was very lucky. I thought I was very lucky to get Martok because there was so much about him that was that I could easily get behind. Like I in Shakespeare, I had a wonderful time doing Shylock, even though I'm not Jewish.
mhm,
But the thing about Shylock, he was a man that was trying to get by in a society that hated him,
hmm,
and so he could use humor.
yes.
That was his way to negotiate his deals and things. And but he had these very strong beliefs, and I said, I can. It's very much. It must be very much like a Palestinian
Hmm,
in occupied territory right now, for
hmm,
instance.
mhm,
How do you get through that? How do you live your life in
yeah,
an occupied place?
yes.
Anyway, so
We
but
do have a question
Okay, there's a question.
uh, from Blacklash 225
Okay.
for JG for Mr. Hertzler. What is your favorite sci-fi scene to be in or actor to act with?
well, of course, well, in the convention circuit, for instance, uh, there's no question that Bob O'Reilly and I we feel like we're a really poor man's Morecambe and Wise, a British comedy team, or a very poor man's Martin Lewis or Abbott and Costello. That's the way we get along. In terms of the show, there was an actor named Burr de Benning. Do you know Burr? Do you ever hear that name?
Yeah, sure.
Burr de Benning. He's passed now, but I worked with him in theater, and there's people that you adore, and I adored working with Burr. He was, I think, three-quarters Chickasaw. He was from Stillwater, Oklahoma, and we did a lot of Chekhov together. And anyway, that's outside the show. On the show, I think it has to be. I think it has to be. It's hard for me to say, but Bashir, Alexander Sid
Yeah.
was so wonderful, and Aaron. I loved working with Aaron Eisenberg.
Yes.
I just I miss him so.
Mm.
And but I maybe we didn't have that many scenes together, but it was always fun
Huh.
to work with him. Sid, I remember Sid in The Wedding, the episode in Deep Space Nine where he was uh, Worf and oh, my friend from Chicago played my wife.
Mhm.
Shannon Cochran played Sorella.
Hmm.
You know, I loved working with her because I happened to have worked with her the preceding summer on a made-for-TV movie for Treasure Island
Huh.
in Las Vegas. It was Steve Wynn made a movie to
Huh.
introduce his casino,
Hmm.
and she was on. So we got a chance to know each other. And then she played my wife, so the majestic Sorella,
Hmm.
um, scary woman Sorella. But Shannon was wonderful. But Sid and the wedding thing where we'd be down there. He and Miles O'Brien, he and Colin would be standing down there with these pummels, just waiting to jump on stage and hit and knock the hell out of Worf, out of Michael with him. It was just so anxious to do that. It was just this now, can we go now? Just give it okay. And they were storming the stage to pummel to pummel Worf. I mean, Worf's a big guy, uh, and Dr. Bashir was not.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they enjoyed that moment. But yeah, I think the person that welcomed me to the crew more than anybody was Nana.
Hmm. Hmm.
Nana Visitor. It was hard to walk. I had to walk out among the entire regular crew of DS9 and sort of intimidate all of them.
Hmm.
It was like going into a club and intimidating the entire club. Um, so it was, they had 15 members. I only had one. And so I had to do that. But she, in the midst of all that, welcomed me to basically said, it's good that you're here and come aboard, you know.
Wow, that's great. That's great. What's it's interesting that you mentioned the Na because obviously we work together on Far Beyond the Stars as well. But I've been in conversation with her recently because I'm creating a new show with the creator of Farscape, where everyone in the world under 60 dies from a disease, and the people 60 and above have to save the world. And so I very much want you to be in that, of course, John. But there's a role I've written for Nana as well. So
Mark, is this your revenge? You mentioned to me earlier, you said something about uh, ageism.
yes,
Your revenge on Hollywood. I think it's fabulous.
yes,
Fabulous. Now, if
yes,
you can only make it Hollywood as opposed to space,
yes.
that's better.
Well, again, because of our fan base, we're now able to make whatever the hell we want to make,
Oh,
and
absolutely right.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's great. And even during the pandemic, where we were able to collaborate on this episode with our actors, all over the country, in New York and California and Atlanta and Saskatchewan and Portugal, and pull together this 2-hour episode just in less than 2 months from scratch.
Who was
Uh,
in Portugal?
Michelle DaCosta, who's our development
Oh,
executive, is
wow.
British, and she played the BBC reporter who interviews Mira Furlan in the episode, but she was there in Portugal, and we got it
Wow.
to
She
work.
got stuck in Portugal.
Yeah, yeah, but
Oh, because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
wow.
and but so it's amazing, but definitely the way Elaine and I work now that we've got our own studio is that we basically pull together an ensemble of actors we want to work with, and we work with them repeatedly. So you're definitely now part of the family, and so because we
Thanks, Mark. I think that's Star Trek is in the unique position of in all of the history of Hollywood that it has a fan base global
yes,
that is there no
yeah,
matter what.
yeah,
So if you can work with a
yeah.
repertory of actors that bespeak that fan base, I I think it's incredibly auspicious that you
Yeah.
do that. So that's fantastic.
Thanks. Well, again, the actors on Star Trek, there's so many talented actors. I mean, you're great, of course, and there's also that big, powerful quality because, again, a lot of the actors in Star Trek are stage trained because they have that ability to command an audience, basically, with it's just the power of their personality and their craft and their passion and skill. And
Yeah.
there's Armin Shimmerman. There's so many. Bob Picardo, of course. Mira Furlan's great, of course. And you know, I mean, she's Babylon 5, but again, it's that same.
Oh, I love Mira. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and because years ago I produced a show called Lazarus Man that was a western with Robert Urich, and I found that like science fiction, that was larger than life characters and larger than life stories, and it had that operatic quality. And so it was, and we cast Armin in that show as well. But so moving forward, we're going to be doing a lot of shows and a lot of projects, and so you'll definitely be hearing from me very shortly.
But a question: you and a number of your peers, but you always seem so completely planted, and
Yes,
a lot of the younger breed are less so.
the younger
The
actors.
younger actors. Is there something that you would like to communicate that you would
To
choose to communicate
young actors, like how
with the
not
young?
to stink.
You know, one of I think my favorite actor in today's world, uh, there are several, but the person that comes to mind is Morgan Freeman.
Mm,
Morgan Freeman, talk about standing and controlling the earth that he's on.
mm,
Nobody listens better, more
mm.
actively with doing nothing and the stillness than
Yes.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Whenever he's doing a commercial right now, what's it for? For um, my better half is here, Chevy. Uh,
Hmm.
it's I don't forget. I forget. You know, I'm so taken with Morgan Freeman. I forget what the commercial is about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has something to do with the pandemic and being isolated.
Hmm.
His his voice is Morgan Freeman. Like I used to be able to do him too. It's like when he was talking about penguins, you know, and March of the Penguins. But I think it's stillness. I think it's stillness. You really don't have to, especially for film and television. You don't have to do anything, and you're better off not doing anything.
Yes. Yes.
Just be there
Mm. Hmm.
and listen and respond.
Yes. Yes. Well, but that's also true of writing. I mean, if you go inside the character and you feel what they're feeling, and you're looking out through their eyes, and you're, again, when you were talking about whether it's a villain or a hero or whatever, you have to be inside that person, and you have
Yeah.
to, you know, because yeah, and so that's the great fun of it. And one of the things that I really loved in the scene that we gave you for Space Command, and that whole episode and the whole show is about literally the ripple effect down generations of, okay, this kid had a father who was a hero, so he grew up to feel like he wasn't up to his dad's level, and then he raises a son, and the son has to rebel, you know, and then there's the grandson, and all of these, it's like a billiard table with all the balls hitting each other. And I find that very, very interesting. You know, it's in my life, my grandfather abandoned the family before my father was born. My dad only met his father 3 times in his life, and I never met my grandfather. And it was
Wow.
only when the Twilight Zone Companion came out, this book that I wrote, that a distant relative saw that and recognized the name, and she had the family tree going back to the 17th century. And then I
Wow.
found out where my family was from, which was oddly enough Morocco. But
Where
And a few of them were no good Nicks.
yes, a few. Well, my grandfather was he had my grandfather had two vocations. He was a professional chef and a professional criminal, and so
That's
he went.
fantastic for writer. That's
Yeah,
as
oh, it's
well as
great.
a writer.
Yeah, well, my grandfather once said to one of the relatives, "I've done many things in my life I'm not proud of, but never under the name Zikri." So,
Wow.
like,
Well, where was he? Do you know where he was from in Morocco? Because
I have to look at what the information is. Other relatives would know. My brother Joe went to the sort of the family, town in Morocco, and then also there was a family scandal, and they moved to Portugal and Spain, and then up to England. And in fact, my great grandfather was one of the founders of the Jewish temple in Manchester, England, and his name is in the masonry.
oh,
Interesting. His name was Prosper Zikri. So it's so all
oh,
of it all finds its way.
oh.
Yeah.
The reason I asked, my dad was in the Air Force, and we lived in Casablanca, Morocco, for 3 years.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
When I was a kid.
Yes.
You know, we would go to, oddly enough, we'd go to, like, Thanksgiving dinner would be in Rabat, you know, some sort of thing there. And
Wow.
we went to Marrakesh, and I remember the beaches on Morocco are just beautiful.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's a short swim between Morocco and Spain. You could have done that
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes. Well, there was usually a family scandal, and then they moved to a different country. So that's how my family got to America.
I
But
love it.
and Adam, go ahead, Adam,
Yeah,
please.
we have a question. I you know just such great conversation. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, please.
But we have a question from Chister, who asks for Mr. Hertzler, who asks, would you come back and play Martok in Picard if asked?
In a New York Minute, however, I you know, Picard, I have written rants about Picard. um, I, I adore. There's something missing.
Mm.
It, you know, with Patrick is there, and he holds this. He's this immense, all-powerful glue that holds things together.
Yes.
But when Jonathan would come on, Jonathan Frakes for a few of the episodes, and then saves the day in the when it's the release the flowers, you know.
Yeah.
Jonathan had brought so much. He brought so much interest, and there were, for me, the people that came on, like I want to say Mira Rostova, who was an acting teacher I had in New York so long ago.
Like Marina Sirtis or
Like Marina, yes,
yeah.
Marina, and when
Jerry Ryan.
Yeah, Jerry Ryan was as good and better than she ever was as you know, 7 of 9. She was wonderful in Picard.
Yes,
but that's not what the show is about. The show is about all these other people, and I never really could get behind them.
No,
I don't know why. I chalk it up to storytelling and writing.
Yeah, they don't know how to establish a character. They don't know how to write a character. The reason it came alive when you had Frakes or Marina Sirtis or Jerry Ryan was because they actually had a relationship and a history with Picard, and both as characters and as actors, and you felt the authenticity of that connection.
Indeed.
Yeah. Whereas, but as a writer, you have to really be able to, as I said earlier, go internal, and you have to understand what makes a character that an audience will connect with.
Well, Michael Chambon was the showrunner and the creator. And he's a wonderful novelist. He's a tremendous writer.
I know.
And that's why it was such a shock to like not get involved in the story. I said, what's the problem here?
Yeah.
But then I noticed the second year he stepped down as showrunner, but is still executive producer.
Yes.
So I don't know who's in charge of the writing now, or who will
find out. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's sort of like, it's another problem is often that the writing staffs are too big. If you've got 20 writers in a room, it's going to be chaos, and there's a lot of reasons a show can go south. And but I agree with you absolutely. Is there another question, Adam?
Yes.
The fan. Yeah.
We have a question from.
The answer. Oh, excuse me, Adam. Excuse me.
Yeah.
The answer to the fan's question in a New York Minute. If I didn't say it before, disregard everything I've said. I would be on Picard like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would love to do Martok. I don't know the timeline. I guess it could work. Because I think Klingons can live to be 250 years old. I'm not sure.
But speaking of Martok, our next question has to do with that. It's from Wilhelm Sowers, and he asks, how did you get the role of Martok?
Wilhelm, are you from Germany, Wilhelm? Are you? Do we know?
I think he is. He's a regular commenter.
Oh, wow.
So,
how did I get it? I had auditioned for something else on the lot at Paramount, some other show, and I just was awful. And I was just sitting in this bench underneath the stairway that leads up the steps to, the second floor. I don't think it was the Sternberg. What's the name of the writers' building?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. I don't recall. Sorry.
I should know it. Anyway, and Ron Surma walked by. One of the casting directors for DS9. And he said, "Oh, John, how you doing?" I said, "Don't even talk to me." And he said, "You know what? You're right for this part." And he said, why don't you take a look at the script and then come up? I said, okay, what is it? What is it? And he said, it's a Klingon. I said, oh, Klingon, great. I am a Shakespearean actor. As Alan Rickman said so well. And so I read it and I said, well, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be your normal obnoxious Klingon. I'm going to make it much more cerebral, conspiratorial. I'll be have my own plans underneath whatever I'm saying, my own agenda. And I went out there and I read it like that. And Jim Conway was there, and I can't think who else was there. There were about 5 people in the room. And they said, after I was done, they said, thank you. Do you know what a Klingon is? I said, oh, let me guess. You want something aggressive, assertive, overbearing, obnoxiously angry. Is that what you mean? They said, yes. So I said, fine. And with that fine, there was a chair, a folding chair. You know those old folding chairs in those buildings. They have the legs go like that onto the floor, but they're covered with a rubber tip so they don't dig into the floor. Well, the one I was sitting in didn't have a rubber tip on the front 2 legs. But anyway, I didn't know this. I lifted up the back of the chair, the first thing I did, and I threw it into the wall. And the chair itself, because the walls in those old buildings are made with plaster and lathe, they aren't, it's not drywall.
Right.
So you have these boards underneath the plaster that's painted, and that thing got stuck right between one of those 2 boards, and it stuck to the wall. And I sort of ripped off about half my thumbnail, got caught in the back of the chair when I threw it. So I was bleeding, but I was so angry, and, all I could hear was this roar in my ears of the blood. And not the first time that's happened. And but I was gesturing and I was spraying blood everywhere. It was blood on the roof and down on the floor. It was just dripping, and I finished. And they said, it was a beat of silence. Thank you. That's it. And I left. And an agent named Chris Wright. He was my agent when I lived in New York, way back when. And he called, and he said he was representing another fella, and he called that other guy. Didn't call me. He called Mike, Ron Canada, and he said, Ron, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is, they had told him that he was going to be Martok, except they had to see one more guy. Ron was one of my best friends. We lived together in New York. And he said, good news and bad news. The bad news is you didn't get the role. The second, that's the bad news. The good news is your very good friend, JG, got the role. And of all people, and Ron's done a lot. He's been a Klingon on on Next Generation, I think. Maybe it was DS9 too. But anyway, that's how I got it. I bled for it, literally, and I wrecked furniture. I'm really good at. I mean, as a theater actor, you're trained to chew and wreck theater.
Yes.
People's capes and bump into the furniture.
That's great. Anyway. Wow. So I think we've come to the end of our time for
just
now.
About, yeah. We have
yes, Adam.
We do have one more question.
One more question.
If we wanna do
sure.
that.
Sure, you bet.
While we wait for our next panelist.
Sure.
Question is from. But first, I do want to say that there's, in addition to the questions, there's been a lot of love for Mr. Hertzler in the comments.
Does anybody mention they're sending me money?
None of that.
No, not so much. Okay. Oh, well.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a
But-
limit.
The question is from Eric Berg, who asks, Mr. Hertzler, can you talk about your appearance on Lois and Clark in 1994?
All I can say is that there are two things. One, Justine Bateman is wonderful. She was just a great human being. Jason Bateman's sister. I don't know if you remember her or not, but
Sure.
she was a lead on the series before Justin. And then Jason got he just rocketed. And I think he was a kid in her trailer. He was a younger brother. And anyway, we had a great deal of fun together because she's very funny and she's a theater person again. But the other thing was Superman, Dean.
Dean Cain.
Dean Cain. I would comment a lot because he was a football player for Princeton. I was a football player for Bucknell. And I said, I would tease him a lot. And he said, finally, he said, JG, why are you always on me about playing foot? And I said, because I heard you were a quarterback for Princeton, and I was a defensive end, and I hate quarterbacks. And he said, I wasn't a quarterback, I was a cornerback, a defensive back. And I said, oh, I love you. Those guys saved my ass so many times. Anyway, those are I loved doing the show. It was a tour, 3-parter. It was we got to shoot on the old lot over there at Warner Brothers. It was great. I had a wonderful time, and I loved that character. I don't think I've ever seen the second. That was a long time ago, and I don't think I've ever seen the second episode I did.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's great that we work in a medium where our work gets preserved. I love that part of it. Yeah.
And I'll have something to show my daughter,
Yes, it's so exciting. Well, John, we have Christina Moses waiting in the green room. So yeah, but thanks so much. And
It's been great.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
and we're gonna have many more conversations. Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Good
Yes.
long
Thanks so much, John. We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Okay, bye. Thank you. Take care.